Morning, Joe Molloy. Good morning to you.
Morning, Ger. Morning, Shane. How you doing, fellas?
Yeah, pretty good. You're planning a grueling weekend of late night watching of West Coast Major.
It's a disaster. It's a disaster. In sporting terms, it's a tragedy. These are just grim. So we're West Coast, US Open, Los Angeles Country Club, and I don't know, maybe 3 a.m. Give or take. Going to be a very slow golf course as well. It's a little quirky in a certain way, so it'll be slow and it'll be coffee if you're that way inclined.
Nobody knows anything about this place because they don't let anybody, no plebs allowed. No plebs allowed.
Hugh Hefner, the Playboy Mansion by the 13th tee. This is right in the heart of Los Angeles. It's a stunning location. Billions, I would think, if you were to buy this property and turn it into housing. So Hugh Hefner tried for many years to get in, but they didn't love the cut of his jib. They were less impressed with fame than the Riviera types down the road. So very exclusive. Hasn't hosted a professional tournament in decades. Hosted the Walker Cup in 2017. And there's been new management there in the last decade or so, and they're loosening the grip a touch on the doors and letting the plebs in a little bit more. And I mean, it is stunning. It's often a thing we do when there's a major on it, of course, we don't really know, where you stick on YouTube and they do a hole-by-hole guide. And I will often have a look at this with a certain gusto and barely make it to past the front nine because it becomes a bit repetitive. A golf course is a golf course at a certain point. But this place is so interesting. George Thomas is the designer. He designed Riviera, so he's kind of seen as, amongst the doyen of golf designers. Beautiful visually. The clubhouse is kind of stunning. Wide fairways by US Open standards. This isn't single file fairway and lots of rough. The fairways are a bit more generous, but it won't just be take a driver off 14 holes without thinking and then play the par threes. There'll be lots of different shots hit off. The tee boxes, nice to be able to work the ball both ways. You'll see lots of traditional Californian terrain like scrubland around the fairways. Apparently it's the last part of central kind of Los Angeles that just isn't covered in concrete. So geologists come from all around to see what California looked like 1,000 years ago. So it's that kind of place there. Par threes, great variety to them. There's like a 290-yard par three, which is a drive and a wedge for us. And then there's a less than 100-yard par three. A couple of drivable par fours as well. The sixth is an amazing hole. Some players are walking off saying, well, you're a fool if you don't just drive that hole. Others are saying, oh no, you have to lay up and it's a wedge. So it's not like, say, at Riviera, the famous 10th, where they now know statistically, after year upon year, you just have to drive it. That's the way to play that hole. You'll generally come off better. There's a real degree of golfing IQ here and trying to figure out what is the best way to play this place. We've never seen anyone play it before. And so, that brings in kind of a quotient of players who really use their minds. And, there's a great video of Jordan Spieth and there's smoke coming out of his ears almost trying to figure out what shot to hit off a tee yesterday. And Justin Thomas is roaring laughing at him because he's overthinking everything. So the 3 a.m. finish aside, thumbs up for Los Angeles Country Club. It's going to be really good.
Saw some of the photos as well, Joe, online of the Bermuda grass, and there seems to be a lot of heavy rough even in and around greens as well. It could get pretty nasty for some players.
Yeah, this is the before every major, someone does a video of someone dropping a ball into rough and going, it's disappeared.
That's exactly what
it's going to be havoc, and then it doesn't seem to play out that way. My sense is we won't be talking about this as remember that major with all the rough. I think it's it does catch your eye for sure, and I saw the same videos, but I looking at the course, I don't think that's the defining aspect in the way it was at Winged Foot, which is a good thing for me because I think that takes a lot of skill out of things. But that said, you don't want to be in the rough, and the bunkers are very difficult as well. Brooks Koepka saying very soft sand, so usually you hit a fairway bunker and ball might roll back to the middle, whereas here it'll stick into that sand and it won't be easy. So they're saying par is your friend and all that. They're anticipating maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 under as a winning score, but again, they don't really know.
Okay, and look, that brings a little bit of mystery to the whole thing, and I think it probably freshens things up a bit and makes that good. In terms of the contenders and the politics, does the politics have any influence on the contenders?
That's a good question. I mean, I think there's a pep in the step of the LIV guys. Like Brooks Koepka, who's obviously feeling good about life, having just won the last major, and he's now in 5 majors, so he's there with, Bryce Seve and Byron Nelson and Peter Thompson. He finished his press conference yesterday by saying, I'll see you all at the Travellers next week, and just got up and walked out. And the golf media were saying, is that a joke? Or is he actually did he get an invite to the Travellers? So look, I presume the LIV guys are feeling great. Of the contenders, when you asked the question, I guess I saw a fairly dejected Rory McIlroy in my mind's eye. He's the one, if anyone's probably feeling a little bit down about the whole situation.
In the last 24 hours, the news is that they're going to just pay him off, and they're going to pay off they're going to pay John Ram. So maybe that gets the pep back. It's like, well,
maybe.
So I stood as the lone voice in the wilderness. I fought the good fight and I lost, but then I won anyway.
Yeah. I mean, how are they going to do this? Where do they draw the line? Shane Lowry got an offer. How much does he get?
Well, maybe you get a percentage of what the offer was if you would have taken it.
I know, but then you're like, I was talking to a fella, he offered me 50 million.
Well, LIV know who they offer to is the thing. That's they've got all the emails. Like, we didn't offer you, buddy. I'd like to cut you Jim for asking.
Yes, I know. There are interesting cases, though, like Max Homa, very marketable, up-and-coming guy. We'll be talking about him more in years to come. He was approached by LIV, and he said, publicly, he's talked about this, he said, I don't want to know the figure, because it will only tempt me. And so, what do we pay him? Look, they're going to have to do something, because I can own. Apparently, the players' meeting last week was there was fury heading Jay Monaghan's way, who's now recovering from a medical incident. I suspect he's under a lot of pressure. Shane Lowry, interestingly, stood up in that meeting, according to Jeff Ogilvy, and at a certain point realised we're getting nowhere here. It's all getting a little OTT. Let's let calm heads prevail and wrap this meeting up. Jeff Ogilvy was singing Lowry's praises for real seasoned pro attitude now. But I like the politics. It's just there for sure. And all the players, to a man, are saying, I have no idea where this is all going. I don't know what golf looks like. You guys know as much as me. That's the general line from all the players this week.
And the evolution of all of the thinking as well. Again, in the papers today, there's a suggestion that there will be some minor team element at the end of the season for them, but that essentially LIV will cease to exist sooner rather than later, because they don't need to exist anymore. Yeah. So if Brooks Koepka is fetching up with the Travellers next week, why would everybody else not start fetching up to the big events?
I know.
Like that's just the end of that. And maybe everybody overthought, how's this all going to work? It's like, well, it's just going to work because they'll all just play again.
Maybe, because like this merger, don't call it a merger, but I think it's not even a binding agreement, and it's just like an intention to negotiate and figure stuff out. They haven't figured anything out. So on the one hand, there are a ton of protocol, and it has to be done this way, it has to be done that way. But then, as you allude to, 4 people just sat around, ignored all the protocol, ignored the board, and made this massive decision anyway over cigars. So, if the sponsors of the Travellers Championship hear that Brooks might be interested, can the PGA Tour say, yeah, you're not going to have the biggest name in golf at your tournament? Of course, I mean...
Exactly.
So yeah, it could happen very quickly.
And they have a partnership now, or they have an understanding of an intention to have a partnership, where it's in everybody's interest for the best players to play against each other as much as they can now, because it reminds everybody of what they're missing out and kind of wins everybody over, and all of a sudden LIV recedes and they keep the heritage of the big tournaments, but they started this new thing, and Saudi Arabia gets exactly what they wanted, which was that.
It's the way of the world.
Exactly. Exactly. So Brooks is going to win this week then.
Yeah, I mean, the only mark against him is with all his 5 majors, he's always played the week before, and LIV has not afforded him that opportunity on this occasion. But the swag was back when he walked in, alpha male energy. So he's a huge contender, and sort of has the mentality to go back to back. Not every player does. John Ram is obviously a huge contender, won the Masters, hasn't done much since, but there's always that kind of recuperation period usually. And then if you're talking like big 3, then there's Scotty Scheffler, who's a very interesting case in that tee to green, he's putting in all-time performances. So at the Memorial, for instance, the other week, strokes gained tee to green, he was 20 shots better than the field, which is the second best. Imagine giving Scotty Scheffler 20 shots. I think Vijay Singh managed something better once in all the years they've done these stats, but like second all-time performance. He was, however, not second last, but last in putting, and his putting has been atrocious. So I'm kind of interested to see what this guy who's putting in, almost unprecedented ball striking performances, but can't putt at the moment, is going to do. So they're kind of the big three. And at this stage, realistically, you're saying Rory's kind of just not in the form to be part of that conversation.
Is it hope rather than expectation for Shane Lowry, Joe, do you reckon? Or can he actually contend?
A bit of both, yeah. Like, he has become genuinely like such a great ball striker, and this golf course will encourage shot makers, and like you'll find yourself in hairy spots and have to show a bit of ingenuity, and I mean that's Lowry 100%. The problem, Shane, is just the putter. It's not going well for him, hasn't been for a long time, so that's the big concern, almost akin to Scheffler. With both of those guys, if they get somewhere on the first or second and they roll in a 20-footer and they say, my God, that felt good, then golf is so ephemeral in terms of the form that they just catch fire for 4 days, and then it could get very interesting. So that's the question mark, and it's been a question mark now for several months, so that'd be the worry with Shane, unfortunately. But like, would you be surprised? Absolutely not.
If we get any kind of finish like we got at the Canadian Open last weekend, I mean, you take that, wouldn't you? 72-footer to win.
Yeah, 72-footer to win, and Adam had one rugby tackled by security guards, so it had everything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't suspect you guys are staying up till 3 a.m. with. Stay up all night watching the golf and straight into work. Is that the gig?
It's tricky.
See, I'm at a festival this weekend, Joe. I'm actually off work on Monday, so I could finish up the raving at 2 or 3 in the morning and just get the last bit of the round. Perfect. What a weekend. Yeah, Ger will be in bed.
Matt McLean, the amateur, he's 29. Do we expect him to turn professional if things go well, or is that like this is just his amazing heyday and he goes back to amateur golf and is like, I played the Masters and I played the US Open?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. I don't know too much about him. I guess if you have even a sniff of professionalism, you turn. So I guess that's his plan, and he's using up his exemptions now, because why wouldn't you? So I would anticipate, turn pro, yeah.
Koepka's in the opening round with Rory and Matsuyama. Like that's a pretty interesting three-ball we start. There's a lot of swagger in that group.
Yeah, the US Open the USGA are kind of renowned for like theming their groups. There was much
the big lads.
Anger a couple of years ago when they had like, there's no other way, a large man's group. It was very embarrassing for the three guys. Like it was terrible, So I think what they've done here is almost said, let's get the alpha of the PGA Tour and the alpha of LIV and stick them together. So at a glance, it looks a bit juicy, but they're pally enough. They played practice rounds together before the Masters. These guys all live in the same neck of the woods in Florida, see each other all the time. So even though one's LIV and one's PGA Tour, they're all winners in life, and they're friendly. So exactly. I don't think there's any animosity there whatsoever between Rory and Koepka. So that's not a bad group. Rory likes a bit of electricity. Maybe it doesn't hurt.
Yeah. All right. So for you, the winner's coming from those big three, or is there a random outsider that you think is going to?
I do look. You look at Rahm and Koepka, and it's hard to look past them. I like the look of Victor Hovland, who's been in the final round of the Open last year and the PGA. He was in the final group with Koepka, and he played very well at the US Open when he burst onto the scene, Michael Richards style in 2019. So I like him. As you work your way down the betting, I sincerely hope Patrick Cantlay doesn't do anything. He is the world's slowest player. And I would think he's going to be involved in a 5.5 hour round here.
Well, on this course, especially.
It's a bad deal. And then you're down into Spieth is just not in the form you need him to be in. Morikawa was interesting. Californian kid, seems to play well in California. But beyond that, I could make a case for the next 20 as ever in golf without feeling terribly strongly. So it's hard to look past Rahm and Koepka. Let's see how Scheffler's putting is. Rory is the mystery wrapped in the enigma. And then I do sort of look at Hovland and think, my life depended on it of those outside the initial 2 or 3. I'd kind of feel like there's a decent chance he'll be hanging around Sunday. But again, let's see how they all find this course. It'll be fun.
All right, Joe, great stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
All right, fellas. Have a good weekend.